Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha and from Chicago, Illinois. And before I begin, I'm dealing with a cataract behind my pupil, which makes reading from the screen very difficult. So I apologize for not making more eye contact with you and like having to do funny things with my glasses here. So in 2011, our son, Keenan Witzak, was diagnosed at the age of 8 months with early infantile Krabbe disease. Because he was symptomatically diagnosed rather than being identified through newborn screening, we missed our opportunity to intervene with a stem cell transplant. The first 2 years of Keenan's life were riddled with rapid neurological deterioration, including painful muscle spasms, excruciating nerve pain, and an inconsolable irritability in the form of a high-pitched scream caused by the swelling of his brain as the myelin of his white matter deteriorated. My first mental twist as a parent was seeing my 9-month-old baby stoned after giving him a dose of clonazepam, a sedative used to treat anxiety by reducing the electrical activity of the brain. And my rationale to cope with having just drugged my son, seeing his little body slouched against the side of his stroller, his eyelids heavy and his pupils glazed over. If anyone deserves to check out on life right now, it's Keenan. His first baby's Christmas was spent screaming from clonazepam withdrawal before the new medications, the baclofen for his muscle spasms, and the Neurontin for his nerve pain reached therapeutic levels. Finally, relief for some of his pain, but the peripheral nerve damage continued. Keenan lost the tone in his muscles and the ability to move his body voluntarily, including his smile. He lost his function to swallow and was fitted with a G-tube for nourishment, while I was handed a suction machine to help manage his secretions. He lost the means to vocalize before forming his first words. His pupils stopped dilating according to light in the room, blowing out his vision. Keenan was just beginning to understand the world around him when one by one Krabbe disease shut his senses down. The most startling symptom was his respiration rate. He went from a toddler's average of 20 to 30 breaths per minute to 4 to 8 breaths per minute, while still maintaining his O2 levels near 100%. His body had an amazing ability to physiologically adapt and compensate. Without the guidance of Krabbe specialist Dr. Maria Escalar at the Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh, where we annually visited to participate in her natural history study, I would not have been prepared for this shocking drop. Even with her accredited insight, Keenan's breathing made everyone around him nervous: his local doctors, nurses, numerous specialists, and therapists. Because Krabbe is a rare disease filled with nuances that are equally rare and therefore misunderstood, and because I knew Keenan better than anyone, I became the unacknowledged lead in his care. This role that I assumed and its growing responsibility backfired on me 7 years later when I was confronted with his end of life. I was not equipped for the conflict between the rational doctor and me who knew we had reached the end, and the symbiotic mother in denial, or perhaps it was the opposite. The doctor whose job it was to protect and endure, and the mother who knew it was time to say goodbye. Either way, I suffered the mental health consequences of simultaneously being both while navigating Keenan's death. Looking back at the tight regime of round-the-clock meds, the baclofen, Neurontin, Bactrim, Indocin, omeprazole, Valium, Onfi, Ativan, and towards the end of his life, pushing morphine and methadone. The treatments, albuterol, vest, suction, CPAP, chest PT, supplemental O2, and time in a stander. The therapies, physical, developmental, and speech and swallow. The appointments, neurology, orthopedics, GI, pulmonology, ENT, sleep studies, and radiology. The coordinating, getting to and from all of the above. Ordering supplies, refilling and picking up medications. The advocating, hours spent on the phone with Blue Cross and Blue Shield and Medicaid. Honestly, it felt like this is all I did. To remedy my guilt of not playing with Keenan more and having fun, or even teaching him his math and ABC fundamentals, I had to remind myself that following through on these measures is what it meant to parent Keenan. For as much as these interventions were ingrained into my vocabulary, my autopilot essential to sustaining and elongating his life for 7 years, it all left me almost the second he did. He died on May 31st, 2018. And in that moment, I was relieved of my duties as his doctor, his nurse, his therapist, his social worker, and his case manager. I tended to his body as a grief-ridden mother would. It took Keenan dying for me to resume my original role. What remains and what I reflect upon now is the emotional resonance of everything we went through. We all know and understand how completely dependent on us a newborn is. With each physical and developmental milestone, they separate from us, gaining more independence and autonomy in the world. This is the normal, healthy trajectory. Not the case, however, when you have a medically complex child. It is the opposite. The older Keenan became, the further into the disease he went, the more compromised his brainstem, the greater the pressure on our parent-caregiver-child relationship. The irony is, within his extreme need of me, our symbiotic attachment, and the intimacy of our nonverbal communication, I had little understanding of who he really was. What was his favorite color? What music did he like? What story did he want to hear next? What did the disease really feel like? All of those little pieces of information that collectively distinguished his personality were locked inside him. It got to the point where I dreaded his birthday and Christmas each year. Everyone asked me what they should get him. What should you get him? What should we get him? What should Santa bring him? There's great pain for me in not ever knowing. Although altruistic, it is depressing to choose fundraising for disease over fulfilling your child's desires. I still get jealous when I see a transplanted child, one capable of laughing into the world, engaging it with yes and no responses, using their eyes to control an eye gaze device with the adult programming phrases that they can then string together. Imagine me getting to know the boy inside my son like that. Imagine giving him the means to separate from me, even if just a little, and the emotional room and mental space it would have allowed both of us. In those last few months of Keenan's life, I could have asked him if he was done, if he was just too tired, or if he wanted to keep on fighting. I could have asked him if he was afraid to die. I could have actively validated him throughout his life, rather than passively soothing the unknown. What's necessary for a newborn will never be enough for a 7-year-old boy, regardless of circumstances. Keenan's been gone for 4 years now, and without him here, my greatest sadness is knowing and understanding more about Krabbe disease than I ever did about him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Kristen?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sometimes my computer doesn't work. That's a really tough one to follow. Thank you for sharing that, Natasha. Our story is similar in one sense, but a little bit different in another. I'm Christin Webb, and we live just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And I'm actually the mother of 2 beautiful children, both affected by Krabbe disease, but with 2 completely different outcomes. So I can't talk about our son Owen without talking about our daughter, Mabry Kate. But we were so excited to welcome our first child, Mabry Kate. She was born happy and healthy on March 13th, 2014. The entire pregnancy and delivery was very uneventful, thankfully. We brought her home, and we could not wait to start the rest of our lives together. During the first 3 months, everything seemed to be fine. Being new parents, we probably missed some things that maybe we would have caught had we had a healthy child before her. But to us, everything seemed fine. She was hitting developmental milestones, began smiling and cooing, and we were completely in love with our beautiful girl. It was at the beginning of June in 2014 that we noticed something wasn't right. She had quit smiling, and she just wasn't quite herself. After a visit to our local pediatrician's office and a quick overnight stay in the hospital, she was diagnosed with a UTI. And it seemed scary to us at the time, but it was fixable. And so we just waited on her to get better, but she never did. From there, Mabry never regained her smile, and various problems and symptoms arose each day. The most significant being her inability to hold down anything that she ate. Whether her meal came back up minutes or 3 hours after a feeding, it didn't matter. She was losing weight during a time in her life when it was crucial to gain weight. Some other symptoms we started to notice included stiffness in her arms and legs, muscle spasms, increased muscle tone, clenched fists, and nystagmus. It would then progress even further into the inability to swallow or eat at all. And she couldn't breathe without supplemental oxygen. And then she even lost the ability to cry when she wanted to, which was mind-blowing to us to witness that. But after months in and out of various doctors' offices, many hospital stays, surgeries, and procedures, we still had no answers. We then decided to travel to get a second opinion. We took a trip 4 hours north of Knoxville to Cincinnati Children's Hospital. They were the first ones that could get us in the quickest, and they were one of the suggested hospitals from our pediatrician. So there we met with a team of doctors, and this was the first time that we had ever seen doctors like meet together as a team. Here in Knoxville, we heard specifically from the neurologist or specifically from the geneticist, and no one ever like pieced together everything as a team. And so just walking in and seeing this group of doctors together, trying to figure this out for us was really reassuring. And it didn't take them long to come up with a diagnosis. After one visit with these doctors, we received gut-wrenching news that Mabry Kate had Krabbe disease and would likely not live to see her second birthday. So one can only imagine the range of emotions that accompanied this news. So with her prognosis, we were told to just keep her comfortable and enjoy our lives together as much as we could, and we did just that. While deep sorrow and grief were the main emotions we initially felt, soon we were encompassed by a sense of love, comfort, and peace from our community and our family and our church family. We had an army of warriors showing up to pray for us and fight this battle alongside us. It's crazy to think about how little we knew with her diagnosis now that we have gone through what we went through with her and later with our son Owen. And so, we were just so oblivious to so much that we now know. Like Natasha said, we feel like we knew more about Krabbe disease than our own daughter and what her loves were. But so we never fully grasped how dark this valley was and the trenches that we were in. But people just poured out their love. They did fundraisers, designed t-shirts, cooked meals, cleaned our house, mowed our yard. So much, I just can't even, the amount of love and support that was just surrounding us. It was just unspeakable. And it's hard to thank so many people for that. But during that time, it was about 19 days before we went to Cincinnati, we unexpectedly found out that we were pregnant again. So when we found out we were pregnant, we had no idea what Mabry had or what her diagnosis was, and that this baby could also have Krabbe disease. We never thought, and we didn't know enough to think those things. And so 19 days later, when we received her diagnosis and we found out that it was genetic and that this baby had a chance of also having this terrible disease, we were just even more devastated. And I think that we had convinced ourselves that this child would not have it because it seemed that the odds were in our favor. But 3 months to the day of getting Mabry's diagnosis, we received our son's diagnosis that he also had Krabbe. So then we had to start making arrangements for his birth and his transplant because we did want to give him a chance at life, no matter what that looked like. So we started talking with Dr. Kurtzberg and her wonderful team at Duke University Hospital to arrange Owen's birth and treatment at Duke, which is about 5 hours from our house, which isn't terrible, but it's still not home. So that's some news that we got in the midst of everything that was going on with Mabry. And we were blessed with our time with Mabry. She actually passed away February 7th, 2015, so just shy of her 11-month birthday. I look back at how significant her short 11-month life was and still is, and I'm blown away. Hands down, I would do absolutely anything to have even one more millisecond with her, but we could not be more proud of her and the fight that she put up for this disease. Her life was full of more love and compassion and joy and peace and beauty than we could have ever imagined. We learned so much through her about life, and she gave us such a new perspective moving forward. And she was our inspiration for fighting for Krabbe to be added to Tennessee's newborn screening. So we also credit her for the reason that Owen was given a chance, because had we not known through our diagnosis with Mabry, we wouldn't have been able to give Owen the chance that he had to live. So with the help of the Mays and the May family and the Measles family, both from Tennessee, we were able to get Tennessee to add Krabbe to the newborn screening, which started back in 2017. So that we know that that's part of her legacy, and we're just thankful for that as well. So back to Owen. Again, he was diagnosed through testing in utero, and we received the results in time to arrange that treatment at Duke University. So Mabry passed away in February, and then a little over a month later, Owen was born. So we had to completely shift our focus on saving him. So we barely even had time to grieve the loss of Mabry in that time. So in March of 2015, just weeks after Mabry passed away, my husband and I put our lives on pause. We packed everything up and moved 5 hours away from our family and friends in preparation for Owen's arrival and treatment at Duke University. I had to take unpaid leave from my job as a teacher and a coach, while my husband was able to transfer the location of his job with UPS from Knoxville to Raleigh, which they don't normally do that. And we were blessed that they were willing to work with us on that. But upon our arrival, we sat down with Dr. Kurtzberg and her team prior to Owen's delivery, and she presented us with the opportunity to enter into a clinical trial, a cell therapy done in conjunction with transplant. So he was the second in the world and the first with Krabbe to partake in this trial. So the unknowns made us a little uneasy, but as she explained more in depth the purpose of this therapy, we saw no reason not to participate. The major benefit behind it was the acceleration of the delivery of donor cells to his central nervous system to prevent disease progression. With Owen having the most severe mutation of Krabbe, this was definitely ideal. And I'm sure you guys have heard Dr. Kurtzberg talk about this treatment where the child's given the 80% of the donor cells on transplant day and the other 20% 28 days later, which Owen did receive that. The transplant process that Owen underwent, including a very aggressive chemotherapy regimen, was a wild roller coaster ride. During the process, we tried to remain hopefully optimistic. We had to take it one day at a time as things changed daily. Some of the major side effects that Owen experienced was mucositis, which led to breathing issues that required 3 trips to the ICU. He received countless blood and platelet transfusions and was placed on an exhaustive list of medications. He also experienced severe burns on his bottom due to chemo in his urine, and the burn team came and taught us a routine that we used for each diaper change while that healing took place. Owen spent the first 110 days of his life in the hospital and an additional 4 months living just outside the hospital once discharged. We were finally able to take Owen home to Tennessee at the end of November in 2015. As far as lasting side effects, the major ones that we see today are his low muscle tone and dental issues. The chemotherapy he received has caused weakened enamel, resulting in many cavities and thinning roots. He does not have, I don't want to say he doesn't have any permanent teeth, but he does have a few in the very back. And so he's had several dental procedures, including the removal of 6 teeth on the top that were replaced with a partial. So we imagine that he'll possibly receive implants when he's fully grown. As excruciating as the transplant process was, and despite the side effects that seem to pale in comparison to the alternative, this treatment does work. And we would do it all over again to make sure Owen has a chance at life, the chance at life that he has now. And we wish that we could have done the same for Mabry, because we truly don't know what we would do with Owen or without Owen. He's the light of our life every day, and he's witty beyond belief, and just we're just so thankful for him. But today, Owen is 7 years old, just finished up kindergarten, loves to tell jokes, hits golf balls with his own set of clubs, loves to swim, and he plays t-ball on a little league team. While he still requires a walker to get around, he doesn't let anything get in his way. He's stubborn and strong-willed, which has served him well. He's the biggest cuddle bug and tells us 100 times a day how much he loves us, which we soak up each time, as we know that that's a miracle in and of itself. We are so thankful for the opportunity that he's been given. It's a true night and day difference between Mabry and Owen. We just really think about every single day how we wish that she would have been given that same opportunity had Tennessee only been screening for that disease when she was born. So our biggest hope is that through our story that you're able to see love and joy alongside the grief and the pain, and know that we believe that God is the author and perfecter of life. So while we would have written our story very differently for ourselves, we trust and know that his plan is good for us, and we know that our minds cannot comprehend what he's doing. And quite frankly, we're fine with not being in the driver's seat, because we've been there, we've tried that, we've tried making plans, and we learned really quickly that for us, nothing ever goes as planned. So yeah, that's the story of Mabry and Owen, and I hope that you guys find hope amidst the tremendous grief and sorrow that we've been through. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And last we have Karlita, and then when she is finished, this is really a great opportunity for the providers on the call to ask questions. These moms have been so brave in telling their story, and this is our opportunity to ask any questions we might have about what their experience is like. But first, we will have Karlita share her experience. Thank you, Karlita.
Thank you. My name is Karlita Blackwell, and my husband and I live outside of St. Louis, Missouri, with our almost 6-year-old son, Ezra. Ezra was born in October of 2016, and about 2 weeks after his birth, we received his newborn screening results. And I got a call from the geneticist saying that he had Krabbe disease. I had no idea what it was, had never heard of it before, and quite honestly, they did not give me any information on that phone call. So I went to Google, which was a horrible idea, and was obviously devastated. Thankfully, we ended up finding Hunter's Hope, actually, and filling out the affected family form that same night. And we were actually put in touch that same evening that we got his diagnosis with Dr. Kurtzberg. So we chatted with her a bit. She helped us understand how critical it was if we wanted to move forward with transplant. So we did some further testing and verified that he did have the early infantile form. And the next day, we, similar to Kristen, packed up all of our stuff and moved halfway across the country to go to Duke we were there about almost 6 months for Ezra to get a transplant and then his subsequent just care post-transplant. Not knowing anything about Krabbe and then being given that just awful diagnosis and reading the things online, especially at that time when there's literally nothing positive, hearing that there was a chance for hope with a transplant, because he was screened at birth, and he was not showing symptoms yet, was like, we were devastated, but we were also so hopeful. We didn't know what to expect, and we still, I think, don't have any expectations. But we're so, so grateful that he was given that chance, and that Missouri was already screening for Krabbe disease. So today, Ezra is almost 6, as I said. He just finished up preschool, so he's starting kindergarten in the fall. He absolutely loves school. He is Mr. Social, Mr. Personality. Everyone always asks if he's always this happy, and the answer is usually yes, unless he's tired. He loves to ride his bike. He loves going to the beach. He loves swimming. He loves just interacting with his peers. He'll try anything. He's fearless. If there's a way that he can do it, he will do it. He never complains about anything. Obviously, there are some things that are harder for him. His biggest issues are mobility, I would say, and speech, but speech was an easy correction. He has a communication device, but he adjusted to seamlessly. He does have a small verbal vocabulary, but his communication device fills in the gaps very easily. So he loves to tell jokes. He just interacts great with his peers. He just finished summer school for 3 weeks, and they all loved him, and he loved them. He loves animals, loves anything that includes, going fast, so rides, watching. He likes to watch like NASCAR races. He's just so much fun. And we think about it so often, the fact that we could have missed like all that his personality and his life brings to us, because he brings us so much joy, and not just to us, but to everyone that he's around. He's truly just an infectious personality, and we're so grateful for newborn screening, for giving us that gift and giving him that gift. Without the early detection via newborn screening and the gift of transplant, we know that his life would look dramatically different. And we know far too many families who have been robbed of the opportunities that we've had to experience with Ezra. It's our family's prayer that with more advocacy and education, one day every child's life will be able to be screened at birth, so that Krabbe disease and many other rare diseases can be caught in time for treatment. That's all. Thank you.